Howdy, everybody. Um, it is Tuesday the 8th, September. Hope you all had a great Labor Day weekend. It's weird, huh? Half the people don't have jobs, nothing's open, then maybe you did something fun. But now back to reality. The reality is huge fires are burning everywhere. I have a brother that lives up in Ashland, and they might have to evacuate. The freeways are closed, north and south. Where do you go? Um, it's not over yet. These big winds that we had today have really wreaked havoc up there in Ashland today. People are still being ridiculous. Most of these fires, so many of them were started by people uh, being careless with weed eaters, lawnmowers. Today, down in near Joshua Tree, where I used to live, they have these celebrations where they're picking the sex of the child and they explode explosives. Well, they blew up this bomb, and so far the bomb has caught everything around there on fire. So far, 10,000 acres have been caught on fire. I guess it's a girl. It was the smoke was pink. Um, be careful out there, folks. This is dry times. It's 111 degrees 2 days ago. So don't be messing around with anything that's flammable out in the woods or anywhere really until this summer's almost over. You can wait before you need to start up your explosives in the garage. Anyway, on that happy note, um, it did cool down a little bit today, and that was nice. It looks like there's another big fire raging out here. I don't know, towards Platina, somewhere out west of Reading, seems like. Maybe it's just strange clouds. I don't know. Looked like a nuclear bomb went off out there. I don't know if that's clouds or fire. Anyway, but the wind did clear up the skies a bit today. Wasn't near smoky, and it was under 100 degrees, and that's always a good day in Reading. Anyway, on that note, I wanted to. Or I'm going to further talk about Shakespeare today because it's going to be Shakespeare week. And you'll probably be doing your next paper on some aspect of Shakespeare. I'll figure it out later. Um, if you're following along in the textbook, and I know you are, the wonderful textbook, if you go back to page around 30, early on, that's covers some Shakespeare stuff. Nothing's covered in depth in that text because this is essentially a survey class. One day, maybe you guys will go to four-year college or even grad school, and you will tackle one subject. You'll tackle Shakespeare for an entire semester. He needs an entire semester, believe me. So we only tackle him a little over a week or so thereabouts. Anyway, so if you go in and you look at announcements today, I did post two videos to watch. One is a really good video on demand on a certain actor. He's going to portray Hamlet and what he goes through, the research and everything. It's a really good documentary series. Um, Maybe you'll recognize him. He's a British actor. I'm going to do another one in a couple of days on Macbeth. It's a way to make it look human and not be so frightening with the language. If you're scared of Hamlet, scared of Shakespeare's language, this kind of brings it down to a human scale. And so I announced there was two videos to watch. One on Shakespeare himself, his life, and then the other one on simply Hamlet, which is a play that maybe you've heard of. I talked about it the other day. They've made several movies about it. Maybe you've seen it. in real life. Maybe you've heard some of his speeches. There's a lot of famous soliloquies in it. To Be or Not to Be is the most famous, but that's one of many. And essentially, it involves Hamlet, who is the Prince of Denmark, and his father is dies suddenly. Well, he finds out through talking to his father's ghost, by the way, that he didn't die natural causes. He was murder most foul, my friends, and he was actually poisoned by his own brother, and who is now the king. And a horrible turn of events, Hamlet's mother has married the brother, and so she's in on it. And so Hamlet discovers this, and now he goes on a revenge. Hamlet's all about revenge, folks. Um, he goes on a revenge spree to prove their guilt, and he does it by feigning insanity. In the meantime, lovely Ophelia falls in love with him, and he's acting so crazy and so out of it that she goes crazy because she doesn't understand what's happening, and she commits suicide. And Hamlet's essentially responsible for that. In the meantime, he does wreak revenge on the father, on a few other people, the mother, and in the end, he has a sword fight, and he is touched with a poison tipped sword, and he himself perishes. Nobody survives that tragedy. It's called The Tragedy. It is a tragedy. And if you want to know what a simple explanation of tragedy is, it's when bad stuff or bad events happen to a good person. It's not tragic if the person is evil and bad to begin with. Hitler's not tragic, folks. He was evil from the get go. Uh, Hamlet is tragic because he was a decent person, and he's befallen by all these tragedies. And that's why it's a tragedy. Um, Same thing with the tragedy. Sort of an okay guy. He's not evil yet, but between him and his wife, they become evil, and he is brought down. And so it's tragic. So um, that's a quick definition of tragedy. Um, so I want you guys to look at in the textbook. Hopefully, you have it by now. Around page 30, there's some information about Shakespeare. Might help you along. Go watch those two videos on that are listed on in the modules, and then of course this lecture will be there too. Some people are getting confused. Maybe I'm getting confused too. But this is humanities too. I have another humanities class, Humanities 4, which is the film studies class. You'll see, I tried, that's why I'm posting it on the modules now. So you shouldn't have to go to YouTube to watch these things now. You should watch them there. That way you're not getting them mixed up. This is Humanities 2, and it's essentially humanities throughout the ages, not just movies and film. It covers everything. And so that's the difference. So hopefully this doesn't get too confusing out there. Hopefully I'm making everything clear in the assignments. When I make the assignment and I say, watch the documentary on Rembrandt, write your research papers, or I should say your critical analysis of that documentary that you watched about Rembrandt, and that's your paper. 3-page minimum. It doesn't have to be, it could be over that, I don't care, but it has to be minimally 3 pages or you will lose points. There's a discipline to writing these papers, and part of the discipline, besides the MLA format, which I want you should know by now, or at least learn by now, I want you to write 3 pages. It's a discipline, and you need to further push the analysis. I used to make these papers 2 pages, but people were submitting a page and a half, and they were only getting small part of the story, and it wasn't enough. And so now I've made them 3 pages. Sorry, but I need you guys to go further on analysis. So look deeper. Look at when you're looking at like the documentary on, let's say, Rembrandt. Look at why he was successful, what he did well, what happened to him, what he did wrong, what brought him down, how he ended up in poverty, where he lived. I don't necessarily want a bio on him. You could get that stuff on Wikipedia. I don't really care when he was born. I know when he was born. And so, what I'm looking for is, who was the man? Who is he? Why does he matter? Why did he matter? Why does he still matter? Why are we still looking at Rembrandt all these years later? Same thing with Shakespeare today. Uh, Shakespeare existed in about 1550 or thereabouts. That's a long time ago, folks. 600 years. Why are we still doing his plays? They're being done all over the world. They've been translated to every language, as far as I know. People relate to these stories. Now, you think, oh, how do they relate to these stories? They're always talking funny words in a funny language that I don't understand. Well, um, that's the beauty of it. They're talking in a heightened poetry, iambic pentameter. That's what they call that um, style of poetry. And once you get into the groove of it, it makes sense if the actors are doing a good job at it. Sometimes you'll watch a play or a movie with the actors doing Shakespeare, and it seems like they're just reciting language that they don't understand. They're not really conveying what the words mean. That's a poor actor. And so you're not going to get it. But you'll see somebody portraying Hamlet, and they'll do it in such a naturalistic way, even though they're saying this heightened, rather flowery poetry language that you might not think makes any sense. And it does make sense because of the intention of the actor. And that's why they keep doing it over and over again. Why do you they've had literally hundreds of productions of Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet. Why do we do it over and over and over again? Because there's always a new group of actors coming up, and they want to take their turn at these great roles. Shakespeare wrote roles for younger people, like in Romeo and Juliet, um, Twelfth Night. He wrote it for middle-aged people. Hamlet's for younger people also. Middle-aged people would be um, Anthony and Cleopatra, would be Macbeth. Then he wrote plays for older people, and the classic would be King Lear. So he's got all the stages of life, beginning, middle, and end. And he wrote all those stages when he was going through those stages himself. That's what writers do. They write about what they're going through. Most of his plays were done at you'll see in the documentary, the Old Globe Theater, which burned down because everything's they didn't have a lot of good fire uh, fighting methods 500 years ago, but it's been rebuilt since, and it's to the exact same measurements as you'll see in that documentary on Hamlet. If you watch it, they're going to perform it there, and it's open air. There's no ceiling. So if it's raining, you got to bring an umbrella. That's what they did in the old days. Um, in the documentary on Shakespeare, they explain the importance of that theater, why it is the way it is, where it came from, the historical significance, and that's all part of what I'm trying to get through in this segment of our humanities is, why does theater matter? Um, should it matter? Why do we want to see people on stage? Do you? I'm not saying you be on stage, but do you ever sit and watch these things It's not a movie. It's different. Um, when you're watching a live theater, you can hear the actors, they could hear you, they could hear you coughing, they could hear you laughing, and it helps their performance or distracts them. Um, it's a living thing that you do not get in a movie theater. Um, People, if you've been in a movie that's really good, people will applaud at the end. There's no one there listening to it, folks. Nobody hears it, but in the theater, they do hear it. And that's really something we've lost in this pandemic. And because I'm a playwright and I've got a play I'm trying to do right now, how do you do it? Well, we're going to do some Zoom thing. It'll be, it won't be like live theater. Anyway, so Shakespeare, look at the text. Don't be afraid of it. Try to read it out loud. When you go to page 30, you can read some Hamlet stuff. Try reading it out loud. Don't let the language scare you. Don't just skim over it and not understand the words because in when you read Shakespeare, there's language and words that aren't used anymore. You're not supposed to know what they are. Um, but when you read a text with Shakespeare that's done properly, it'll have the definitions of those words in the text in the book. Hopefully, you get the good one. If not, get Spark Notes and find it out through there. That's a great way to understand all these plays. They really explain it, and they explain the antiquated language. For example, in the Hamlet, they talk about um, somebody being assaulted with a bodkin. Nobody knows what a bodkin is. What's a bodkin? Well, it's a knife. You wouldn't know that. But if the actors are conveying the intention of the language, you will know it. You don't need to know it translates to knife. The actor will give their intention and will convey that they're talking about a knife. Also, in Shakespeare's time, they believed, they did kind of believe in ghosts and witchcraft because a lot of it plays in a lot of his plays. They accepted it. It wasn't just something they said, oh, it doesn't exist. Maybe they knew it didn't exist. Maybe they were still under the illusion that some of this stuff did exist in their world. And so in Hamlet, he talks to his father's ghost. Well, I've had conversations with my dead friend. He's dead, folks. Yeah, they're in my dreams, but is it any less relevant? Is he a ghost or is he in my dreams? Does it matter? Um, he's not in the same room with me, but he's in my rattling around my head, so he's actually there. Maybe you've had the same thing. Maybe someone close to you has died and they have visitations. Is it reality? Is it not reality? What does it matter? They're trying to say something. Now, it's either they're trying to say it or you're saying it to understand they're lost. Their loss. So maybe it is just your subconscious. What does it matter? Call it a ghost. I don't have any problem with that. And in Macbeth, the classic, is the three sisters, three weird. They don't call them witches; they call them the three weird sisters. Everybody calls them witches now, but they're weird, folks. They're doing some weird stuff. Are they real? Is it in his imagination? Are they really witches? They are predicting some weird stuff. They're behaving very strangely. They're not really human, or are they? Or is it in his imagination? And he accepts that. Um, so these things exist in all these plays um, because the people in those days believed in it. It's like if you ever go to Iceland, they believe in trolls, and they do. They believe them. You can't convince them otherwise. You might not believe in a troll, but they do. We all have our strange beliefs, okay? Um, to understand a culture, you need to understand their beliefs and accept them, not think you know better because you come from Redding, California, and how dare anybody tell you about a troll? Well, they have some stories, and their culture's a lot older than we are. Should listen to them. Anyway, so look at those documentaries I posted on Shakespeare. I'm going to post probably your next assignment. I'll post it on probably Thursday. Um, if you have any questions, you know how to get hold of me. You know my email. You know my text number. It's on the syllabus. I didn't post office hours because I'm essentially available. If anybody needs to text me, obviously I respond, or email me. I respond very quickly. If you need to talk to me in person on the telephone, call me. Tell me what class you're in, though, before you do. And give me a heads up they're going to call. So if I see a strange number on there, because I usually don't answer. But if you say, I'm going to call in a half hour at 1 o'clock, I'll be prepared for it. And if you have some issues you want to talk to me about, no big deal. Also, if you want to do a Zoom conference, that's fine too. I'm here for you, students. And we'll ever do a Zoom meeting, maybe. There's I these other classes, I have way too many people. I have 80 people in one class, 69 in another. This class is a little more manageable. I think there's 30 or something. So we might pull off a Zoom meeting. Chess College now has a Zoom contract. And so I will be looking into that. And maybe I'll do one of these lectures on Zoom and you can show up. We'll all be in the same time zone together. On that, look at the modules, look at what I've posted, and I'll see you on Thursday where I'll probably make an assignment and for your next assignment. And I'm still grading your papers. That's ongoing, folks. I'll be grading your papers between now until the end of the semester. It never stops. So have patience. I'm getting to them eventually. Anything else? And remember, one of the famous lines from Shakespeare's Hamlet: to be or not to be. Just think about that for a minute. What does it mean? We'll talk about it later, where the mystery continues. See you next time.